Sophie, and thank you for talking to us. Sophie, you and I have known each other for many years, particularly working on diversity in corporate leadership, but I've never had anything to do with your work with Prince Harry. So let's just start with the origins of Sentebale. What was the point? What was the aim of setting it up?
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Trevor, for having us here on behalf of the entire Sentebale organization, 540 strong. This is an opportunity for us to just set the record straight and also talk about the future of Sentebale. But where did it begin? Sentebale started as a very urgent response to the urgent need for those who were impacted by HIV and AIDS in Lesotho to be taken care of. Prince Harry and Princess thought that they were uniquely placed to respond to the needs of orphans and vulnerable children, and this was in 2006. Lesotho is a very small country that's within South Africa itself. But as you roll on to 2024, the issues in Southern Africa are actually quite different. HIV and AIDS is no longer a death sentence. And so our organization is really looking at those other elements in the ecosystem that affect the health and well-being of young people. And so at Sentebale, we're focused on health, on wealth, and on climate resilience of young people in Lesotho and Botswana.
OK, over time, it's built to be quite a big outfit. It's a multi-million-dollar outfit, I think. You were on the board for 6 years, and you've been on board more recently. Sophie, let me start with you. When you came back as chair in 2023, what did you think was going wrong?
Now, I'm going to answer this very frankly, but I just want to say normally I wouldn't want to discuss family business in this way in an open forum. But here we are, and I'll do my best to be frank in my disclosure. So when I arrived in July in 2023, of course, the first thing you do is you open the annual report, you look at the board minutes to see what it is that's going on in the organization. When you look at the I did a 7-year historical review of the financials, looking at our costs and looking at our revenue, so income. It was pretty obvious to me that we had lost quite a number of corporate sponsors, we'd lost some families, and we'd lost individuals who were donating to the organization. And there was quite a significant correlation between the time the organization started to see a departure of sort of major organizations and Prince Harry's departure from the UK itself. When you look at the board minutes, though, there is no discussion about what's happening with respect to some of our most significant funders. And then when you discuss with the senior executive team and ask why there isn't a conversation about this, the answer is it's really difficult to have this conversation because the instruction was it's an uncomfortable conversation to have with Prince Harry in the room.
So the central point here is when you look at the risk register of the charity and funding, number one risk is that's Duke of Sussex?
Yes.
Is that your opinion, or?
It is.
Ian, is that what you saw?
Yes, I mean, I think there's something underlying that as well, which is quite interesting. So if you look at how boards of trustees should work, where the public gets their comfort from is that they live in a rules-based governance framework, which in this case is regulated by the Charity Commission. And you're expecting the board to act independently, to support the charitable objects and support the interests of the organisation as a whole. If you get some trustees or a part of the board which is serving an external party, that can create a number of difficulties and it can create dysfunctionality. Because if they are serving the external party over and above the interests of the charity as a whole, you can get into a muddle.
To be absolutely clear here, you're saying, Sophie, number one, that what you discovered was essentially donors were walking because of the Prince's reputation.
Yes.
Let me put to you what some of the members of the board had said about essentially these allegations. Sky News spoke to Dr Kelele Leratoli earlier on this week, and she said, I've been in all the meetings, conduct of the board has been one of respect for each other. All of this came as a shock to me. What exactly is the difference then?
Okay, I'll give
Dr. Leratoli doesn't recognise the picture that you're Dr. Laretore doesn't recognise the picture you're painting.
Yeah, so I'll answer that question in two parts, and Ian, it would be good to get your perspective as well. I'll be very direct with respect to Dr. Kelly. He had the worst attendance record, and even when he was in the meetings, he didn't actually contribute that much. So I'm not surprised that he didn't know much of what was going on in the organisation.
To be fair, I mean, he's not here to answer for himself.
Yes.
But what he's saying is that when he was in the meetings, there was no conflict. Everything was pretty straightforward, and he can't see the allegations that you're making about poor governance in his experience. He doesn't recognise them.
I think, as a matter of fact, I mean, he wasn't in all the meetings, and if you have irregular attendance, then you're not going to see the trend over a long time.
So here is here's the thing to remember. There were meetings definitely where Dr. Kelly was not present, and there was belligerence, and there was an insistence on, raising of topics that were not even on the agenda of the day. An example might be Prince Harry decides on a specific occasion that he wants to appoint an individual to the board with immediate effect without having talked to me. It's not on the agenda. And somehow everybody's just supposed to tolerate that.
The he being here, Prince Harry.
Yes, Prince
So
Harry.
Prince Harry comes into the meeting and says, I want to appoint somebody as CEO.
As a board member, as a trustee with immediate effect. His proxy on the board says, yes, I second that motion. The third proxy on the board says, welcome to the board, Brian. And everybody's shocked and quiet. But this is what happens when the prince is in the room and no one has the courage to speak.
Well, speaking of not having the courage to speak, another trustee, Baroness Chalker of Wallasey, served as a trustee for 20 years, described you as, I'm quoting here, almost dictatorial.
Change is hard for some people. Let me just put it that way. I think what we had here was a board that had overstayed by even Charity Commission guidance. Most of the members of the board, when I came back in July of 2023, had been on the board when I left. This is not how a properly run organization should work. You're not supposed to be on a board for past 9 years. Most of these individuals were there for 5, 10, 15, now 19 years. And so what you have is entrenchment. And there's a reason why you have term limits, because people begin to mark their own homework, and turkeys don't vote for Christmas. And so here I come talking about transformation and innovation and fresh ideas. What do you think the response might be?
What you seem to be... let's deal with the elephant in the room here. Mm-hmm. Is this characteristic, this way of doing things, do you think something to do with the fact that this was Prince Harry's charity and the people, as you say, there are people on it who were in some way beholden to him? Is that the point you're making here?
I think there's something very important about that, because when the charity was set up, it was structured in a certain way. So he was a young, this was a young Harry, a youthful Harry that we were seeing. And his work for Sentebale earned him the respect and admiration of nations, including this nation and also the people of Lesotho.
And
that is, and that is remembered. And so it's understandable that at the beginning he would want to have some trustees around him to create some structure and guide him and all of that. But the interesting thing is that in 20 years, the development world has moved on. That structure will not attract the sort of large institutional funding which is needed to fulfill the ambition of the organisation. People will be worried about where is the directing mind? Is it the board of the trust of the charity, or is it the patron? And that, from a governance perspective, is the central issue.
Sophie, let's talk about where things, as you saw it, started to go wrong. One of the incidents was the fundraising, the Polo tournament, which is one of the ways in which Sentebale raised a lot of money. What happened?
We were so fortunate to have the opportunity to do a Polo challenge in Miami last year in April. We had a very generous family that was happy for us to use their Polo grounds at a material discount. And then about a month before the event was about to take place, Prince Harry called the team and said, "I'm doing a Netflix show, and I would love to bring a camera crew so that I can include some footage in this show." And so the team called me and tell me, "Oh, Prince Harry's made this request, so we're doing the things." I said, "You can't be doing the things without seeking consent from the property owners, the sponsors, all the guests. Nobody signed up into being on a Netflix show." And so we have this discussion about the need to talk to everybody. We come up with draft agreements. And of course, the venue owner says, "This is now a commercial undertaking. So here are my terms." We couldn't afford it. So now we lost the venue. So we went to another venue, and we were lucky enough that through Prince Harry's connections, actually, and a friend of his, there was another family that was prepared to host. The show went on, but there was a lot of disruption, right? A lot of people were unhappy because we'd worked on this for months. At the actual, on the actual day, we had Prince Harry, which is always wonderful. The Duchess decided to attend, but she told us she wasn't attending. And she brought a friend, a very famous friend. So you can imagine all of the activity that goes with these additional amazing people. We're excited about it. We would have been really excited had we known ahead of time, but we didn't. And so the choreography went badly on stage because we had too many people on stage. The international press captured this, and there was a lot of talk about the Duchess and the choreography on stage and whether she should have been there and her treatment of me. Prince Harry asked me to issue some sort of a statement in support of the Duchess, and I said I wouldn't. Not because I didn't care about the Duchess, but because I knew what would happen if I did so, number one. And number two, because we cannot be an extension of the Sussex.
What would have
PR
happened
machine.
if you had simply just said, "There's nothing wrong with what's happened," what the Duchess did?
Well, the Duchess has told Dr. Sophie Chandauka to make a press release about her, and then she'll get even worse trolling. That's what would have happened.
You said that Prince Harry wanted to, I'm quoting here, force the failure of the charity. Why on earth would he want a charity he founded in memory of his mother to fail? I mean, he would have some justification for feeling hurt at allegation.
To be honest, it's a last resort. Really, what Prince Harry wanted to do was to eject me from the organization, and this went on for months. It went on for months through bullying, harassment. I have documentation. There were board meetings where members of the executive team and external strategic advisors were sending me messages saying, "Should I interrupt? Should I stop this? Oh my gosh, this is so bad." In fact, our strategic advisor for fundraising then sent me a message saying she wouldn't want to ever attend any more board meetings or bring her colleagues because of the treatment. When that failed, Prince Harry started to brief, and his team, sponsors that I'd been speaking to against me and the charity, because that is a sure way of getting me out if it's seen as though I'm not being successful in my fundraising efforts.
I obviously have to put this to both of you.
Yes.
What you're essentially saying is that the Duke of Sussex is guilty of harassment and bullying and improper conduct in the governance of a charity.
Well, let me put it to you this way. I'm going to give you a really good example. The only reason I'm here, Trevor, is because at some point on Tuesday, Prince Harry authorized the release of a damaging piece of news to the outside world without informing me, or my country directors, or my executive director. And can you imagine what that attack has done for me, on me, and the 540 individuals in the Sentebale organizations and their family? That is an example of harassment and bullying at scale. And so if the world didn't want to believe that there's such a thing as bullying, this unleashing of the Sussex machine on me and the 540 employees at Sentebale who received this and have had to defend it.
By the way, when you say the Sussex machine, what are you talking about?
the PR machine that supports Prince Harry's efforts. The only way we discovered of his decision was through the Sussex machine activating newspapers.
You were not told that he planned and the Princesa planned to resign?
We were informed that they have the intention to withdraw if I went to the High Court and succeeded.
All right, well, look, there have been accusations against you also.
Yes.
As I said, Baroness Chalker said that you were dictatorial. But on the polo match, which we've talked about, the accusation is that the financial backers were upset by your conduct, and also that you hired expensive consultants without board approval.
Well, that's just not true. Ian is witness.
Well, look, I mean, another source from who was a trustee apparently told a national newspaper that the trustees were supportive of moving fundraising towards America, but you didn't do that, you, Sophie, and I'm quoting here from the Financial Times. Trustees tried to negotiate this privately, requested she consider her position due to their lack of trust and confidence in her as a leader. Isn't the problem here that it was you was the problem, not the prince?
It was me who was the problem because I put a whistleblower complaint about the bullying, the harassment, and the misogyny, and Prince Harry interfered in the investigation of that. And the senior independent director who should have taken care of it was the very same person who then delivered the news to me that I was going to be removed by the board. So it's a cover-up, and the prince is involved.
You talked about misogyny. Let's be frank, are you saying that the misogyny stemmed from Prince Harry himself and his associates?
I would actually say my experience is Prince Harry himself, fantastic actually. We had a great relationship. But there are some individuals on the board who, quite frankly, did not treat me in the way that they would have treated the prior chair, right? And
Sorry, because?
And completely disrupted my meetings because they thought that they could get away with mistreating a woman. And all the women who attended these meetings felt it.
There are many more things to talk about here, but let me just ask you finally, does Sentebale have a future without the Duke of Sussex?
Absolutely. Sentebale has had a future. We must stop infantilizing Sentebale. Sentebale is 19 years old. Sentebale is here because of the people in Africa who do the work every single day. Prince Harry visited Africa for the first time in 5 years when I asked him to last year. Who do you think was running the show? During the pandemic, before the pandemic, and after the pandemic, Sentebale will live. Sentebale will live on because of the people.
Ian, Sophie, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was Dr Sophie Chandauka, Chair of Sentebale. We've asked the Duke of Sussex for an interview, or if he could provide anyone for an interview, and that offer remains open. Sky News contacted the Duke and Duchess of Sussex about the content of Sophie Chandauka's interview with me, and they declined to offer any formal response. But a source close to the former trustees of the Sentebale charity has described as categorically false Dr Chandauka's claims that Dr Kalele did not attend meetings and did not contribute much when he was in meetings, and that the Duke of Sussex leaving the UK impacted the charity, caused it to lose sponsors, or that the Duke posed the biggest risk to the charity. The source also described as completely baseless Dr Chandauka's claims that she was bullied and harassed, briefed against by Prince Harry, or that the Sussex machine was unleashed on her, and that the people on the board of Sentebale were scared to speak up when the Duke was in the room. The claim that the press was informed about the royal patron's departure as trustees before the charity has been described by the source as categorically untrue. The source described Dr Chandauka's account of the polo match as highly misleading. Well, Sky News also contacted Netflix, who declined to comment. In response to Dr Chandauka's claim that the Duke of Sussex was forcing the failure of the charity as a last resort, the source pointed to the public statement of Prince Harry and his co-founder of the Sentebale charity, Prince Cicero of Lesotho, which read, "It is devastating that the relationship between the charity's trustees and the chair of the board broke down beyond repair, creating an untenable situation. These trustees acted in the best interest of the charity in asking the chair to step down while keeping the well-being of staff in mind. In turn, she sued the charity to remain in this voluntary position, further underscoring the broken relationship.